Okay, all right. So I would like to welcome everybody to the November meeting of the Paxton Planning Board. We are conducting the meeting virtually or by Zoom, and we have a couple of quick items to address and act on prior to next Monday evening's special town meeting. So to start off with, we need to have a discussion. I should say everybody, my name's Neil Bagdis, Chair of the Planning Board. I don't know, I don't have video, I'm just doing audio. So, and the other four members of the board are present. So any votes that we take will have to be called out by name and we'll go from there. But the first items are to, we're going to update the recommendation from the public hearing that was held on October 29th. And we're asking to amend the zoning bylaws and adopt the newly created or amended bylaws known as version 2, dated today, November 13th, 2024. So a couple of the questions that have come up for the special town meeting to be held next Monday is there will not be any mention this evening nor Monday evening of the MBTA zoning bylaw. We're taking that off the table at the present time. We're waiting on information from the state to answer questions that we posed. And then the next thing we need to do is there are 3 sections in the current zoning bylaw as presented. We need to, and I'll discuss this and we'll take motions shortly, but the first one is the temporary accessory use apartment part of the bylaw that we currently have is going to be changed to comply with the state of Massachusetts new accessory dwelling unit requirements, so ADUs, and it takes effect on February 2nd of 2025. So we're trying to incorporate those specifications into our new zoning bylaw to make sure that we're compliant with what happens along those lines. So if anyone has questions on that, we can discuss them a little further. I think I can explain most of what's coming, but if not, I would entertain a motion to amend the bylaws from the temporary accessory use apartments to the proposed ADU by the state.
So moved.
You have to announce who you are, just because.
Jason Burgess. I'll make the motion.
Okay.
David Bloom, I'll second.
Okay. All right. Is there any further discussion at this point? Okay, I'm going to move the motion. All in favor? You have to roll call. So, David.
Yes.
Okay, Jason.
Yes.
Peter. Peter.
You're on mute, Peter.
All right, we'll come back to Peter. Rob?
Kozarski, yes.
Okay. Peter, are you unmuted? Yes, just say.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so the vote is unanimous, 5-0. Okay, the next item on the agenda is to move some of the or to revisit some of the definitions on what we heard during the hearing on the 29th. So the first item is the new use table, and it has been amended as of today. And there are some requirements for site plan approval on some of the items. And I guess at this point, that's kind of where I'm at. Heather, how am I doing with this? Am I getting where you want to be?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think just in general, so there were the changes there as well as legal made a couple other ones. I think the most significant one is the one you're hitting on. And I'm just trying to pull up Ryan's red line version now, just because I imagine his is the most up to date here. I'm just trying to pull that up so I can get to that piece and show folks. So really going into from the public hearing, there's a lot of discussion about chickens, after which I had spoke with legal counsel and he asked me what we were trying to do, and he told me we were doing it wrong. So up until the public hearing, we kept talking about amending the agricultural use table. And that was not the appropriate location to amend for residential, ability to have chickens. It was more so, it should have been under the accessory use. So with that being said, the red line version, as it came back, it does have in the accessory use section, just trying to get to that, and then I'll pull it up on my screen, Neil.
All right, I believe it's page 29. No, 23, and the first section is page 19.
Yes, okay, I think I found it. Okay, let's see. So this is with legal counsel's commentary. Just share my screen, and then Neil, I'll let you
All right,
take it from there because you had some conversations with Brian.
yes, okay. All right, so let's see, can I make this bigger? I think I can, yes, there we go. Okay. So we're on page, that's page 19, is that correct, or is that page 23?
It depends on the document. Mine says it's page 30, so it just depends.
All right, okay, that's fine. All right, so if you look here, and Julia, I saw that you had also joined the meeting, so I just want to make sure. We've had several discussions. I spent more time today discussing chickens with people in this town. Both residents, non-residents, legal people, and whatever. I don't think I will ever eat chicken again. I don't think I'll ever eat eggs again. But in trying to keep everybody comfortable and not getting bogged down at next Monday's meeting, if you look at item 13 there, it says raising and keeping of poultry accessory to a residential use. It is allowed in residential A, B, and in the business zone, with a stipulation that the owners must provide notice to the Board of Health. And we're going to use a phrase, a notification that you have them. I don't want to call it a request for a special permit because people would be concerned they could be denied. And we're not even going to call it an application because people may think that there are fees associated with an application. So we agreed on the word notification. Is that correct, Julia?
Yes, that was the word we agreed on.
Okay. And are you happy with what you see here now? I'm not sure if you got earlier vision. You sent me another red line version, but I waited till town council sent me his latest, which was 5:10 this afternoon.
Yeah, so I greatly appreciate having this added in. It's a little different than what I had envisioned, but it accomplishes the goal with regard to poultry. I do think that there's more to be discussed around, you know, some of the other types of animals that people may want to keep. And I did send along the language as we had discussed.
Correct. Most of it came from the town of Princeton. Is that correct?
So the town of Princeton, the way that so this actually, I had reviewed, so let me back up. I reviewed the use tables for all of the 5 Wachusett towns, town of West Boylston, Sudbury, and I thought there was another one, but I don't remember it. Anyways, everybody in those towns just allowed agriculture by right, for the most part. The most restrictive was Barry. Barry set, for residential purposes, set some setbacks, some required minimum setbacks. And Princeton just deferred to the Board of Health on all animal matters. So, you know, there's a couple of different ways to handle it. And, you know, I leave that up to you. But I did send along some proposed language. I just don't know if you've seen it.
Okay. So
Neil, this is Roberta. I just want to weigh
I was
in.
going to, I wanted your chiming in here because you and I sat through all the, you know.
We did as a zoning review committee, and I feel like there's been separate conversations since the last public meeting, the public hearing, where we discussed chickens specifically. in addition to, the agricultural section of livestock and horses. And I'm a little concerned that the conversations have sort of spun off to individual conversations. I would like to hear what the attorney has said, which leads us to this language, which does not allow neighbors to be notified of chickens being introduced next to them, regardless of the size of the property, and why this is the most beneficial legal language for the town to adopt.
Okay. So Heather, you want to chime in here? Because I know you're just dying to talk about chickens again.
I just love talking about chickens. I think the idea was to going back and forth. I know Neil's had a couple conversations with Brian about figuring out what an answer could be here to kind of compromise in advance of the town meeting. I think his piece was, the way we originally had it, in the agricultural section, the problem was there is that it only applied to commercial farms. And I actually had a conversation subsequent to the public hearing with the building commissioner, and he's like, yeah, I noticed that when I first got here, and that seemed to be a problem, that there was nothing anywhere in the zoning pertaining to residents being able to have chickens. So after the public hearing, Brian, our legal counsel, had recommended putting chickens into the section, which is the accessory use, which you see it now.
Yeah.
That being said, it was originally in there as a special permit, I think, no.
Correct.
And I think further conversation was, how do we offer a compromise here? So I think that kind of got massaged out of some conversations with Brian. So again, it's, ultimately up to the planning board how they want to see this, but I think this is, putting forward, maybe this is a compromise where, the town is essentially at least gets notice that there are chickens kept to go from there. I don't know if that entirely helps Roberta, but that's the backstory that, as I understand it, and I don't know, Neil, you've been very involved in this, so you might
I
have
know.
more to add.
All right, so let me just follow up or piggyback on that, because I cannot believe that we're going to spend this much time or money, because I mean, Heather's had conversations with legal. I had today almost 40 minutes of conversations with legal to come up with this. So here's where we're at. Presently, there are people in town that have chickens. And when we had the hearing back on the 29th, there was discussion or statements were made that if you did not have 40,000 square feet of land, you could not have chickens. It would not be grandfathered. They would just, you couldn't do it. So people got concerned about that. And we then went to have discussions, and I asked Heather to conduct the discussions because it wasn't necessary that myself and then Heather and then everybody talked with legal. But anyway, we want to make it conducive to, if you have chickens, you can keep your chickens, whether you have 10,000 square feet or 10 million square feet. I don't care. So if you have a chicken, you can keep your chickens. There's no fear of losing the food source of protein for your family, eggs. That's great. However, in the future, if you, and you will get further, you must notify the town that you have these chickens through the Board of Health. You just send a note and, hey, I live at whatever X number Y Main Street and I have 6 chickens. Thank you. Okay. Now, moving forward, and this is where we got into a sticky wicket today, Roberta, meaning literally 5 hours ago, 4 hours ago, we still had the delineation or designation of 40,000 square feet. And the only thing that we could come up with was moving ahead after the meeting or the special town meeting on Monday. If you don't have 40,000 square feet, the way it's presently being proposed is you can't add chickens. And I had input from the community. Mrs. Pinchatori was one of them. It said that may be restrictive. And I mean, we had discussions. I'm trying to act as a mediator here and keep everybody happy.
I appreciate that. I don't think this is the place to do it, honestly.
Okay.
I think we came up as a bylaw review committee with a plan that protected people, neighbors in particular, of neighbors with less than 40,000 square feet that wanted to have chickens. No one ever said there was going to be a roundup of chickens after any bylaw passed if you didn't have a permit before. No one said that. We weren't going to do that. It was kind of like, if you've gotten away with it so far, you'll continue to get away with it. Our enforcement, is not punitive in that way. But if you in the future want to have chickens and you have 40,000 square feet, you should, to comply, go and follow the zoning bylaws, which I think required a special permit so that we could speak to the potential concerns of neighbors and the Board of Health at the same time before the chickens were introduced to the property. So I still think there's room for compromise if you want to float this number 13 by saying still nothing under 40,000 square feet. I don't see the benefit of it to the town, to the neighbors. I just don't. And I don't think that's harmful to the town to have a healthy environment in a small, dense area of not having unregulated but notified of chickens.
Okay. And I understand and I appreciate, because we have worked long hours on this, more hours on this one thing than I think any
But
other.
we haven't as a group, and that's what bothers me, is that there were 8 people on this committee, and it's come down to some social media comments about chickens that we're now changing it outside of a public process
Okay.
at the 11th hour.
Okay. So what I noticed after Brian sent me this document was that there is no mention of roosters, which was one of the things that we wanted in. You can't have roosters. So that's not in there. And again, we're trying to do this on the fly. So we have between tonight and Monday night to come up with something acceptable to the masses. Julia?
I just want to make the comment that to me, the importance of getting these zoning bylaws approved at town meeting is huge, right? The agriculture piece of this, by comparison, is minor, but it is causing a little bit of a ripple in the community. I just think that we may want to give on this rather than have it be yet another reason why potentially this fails at town meeting.
But if this is the reason that you feel this is going to fail, we're way off base here.
Then you haven't been watching the business zone comments online.
No, and I refuse to go.
No,
on.
I mean, I'm sorry. What
Go
I'm
ahead.
trying to say is that there's already enough problem, right? We don't need more problem.
I
So
don't think that's the way to handle it. I really don't. I think we're not giving any credit to the people that are going to live next to someone who has 1 acre of land and wants how many chickens? As many as they want. We haven't
So-
even limited how many chickens
So-
you can have on any parcel of land.
Can we get grounded in what's really happening right now? So right now, correct me if I'm wrong, we don't have any restrictions on chickens, correct?
Right now, you can't legally, if someone wanted to enforce a zoning bylaw, you can't have chickens
Okay.
as a
okay.
resident unless you're in an agricultural commercial farm, right?
Okay.
No chicken for you.
Correct.
So,
Correct.
so this wording here makes it less restrictive. You can have chickens and you just have to inform the Board of Health,
Correct.
okay? People are having chickens now and they're not informing anybody and they legally can't have them.
Right.
What are we doing about it? Nothing. So
We're
I
going to
don't
have a
think
big
this changes,
barbecue.
I don't think this changes the community at all. It just allows people to have chickens and inform the Board of Health. If they don't inform the Board of Health and there is a health concern raised by neighbors, then certainly that opens it up for some investigation and putting some rules in place. But I just don't see this as a problem right now.
All right, but
David,
David,
actually,
one of the things is we
respectfully,
have,
I don't think that this does allow us to put any rules
Right.
in place if
There are
someone
no
has a
teeth.
complaint.
right, if we don't have something down, there are no teeth in terms of, when you say we need to discuss it further or have something to enforce, there is nothing to enforce. Other than you as neighbor A and me as neighbor B finding ourselves in court.
Maybe we need to have some wording that the Board of Health has some jurisdiction here.
I think that's dangerous.
Yeah, we're on a very slippery slope here.
So maybe we just take this out altogether and live with what we have now.
I mean, David, I would agree with you that you're right. People are doing what they're doing regardless of the fact that they couldn't. And I would even go a step farther to say they will do what they want to do, even if you can't have a chicken under 40,000 square feet. And again, I am not saying that we should go and enforce old laws or even new laws, but I do think that this gives us an ability to mediate a dispute between neighbors and also enforce some reasonable regulations like number of chickens, where they're housed, how close that coop is to a property line, how often your manure gets removed, nuisance type items that with the bylaw written the way it is currently, and I know Julie has a different opinion on this, the Board of Health is not a regulatory body for structure or variances or side, or setbacks or any physical structure. So I think we need to put something in, even if no one pays attention to it, so that we can mediate those, hopefully 1 in a million chicken wars that could come up.
Right. So why don't we just leave it as it is now?
Because that doesn't give us any teeth.
Right, there's nothing in right now. So,
No, but right now, meaning without this approved, without this wording. Julie, you said right now, nobody can have chickens.
well,
But they
no,
have
wait,
limits.
Heather, can you go back like 5 pages to this is the red line proposal. Let's go
Yeah.
back to the existing so David can see
Oh,
it. I believe
yep.
in the documents that I sent you guys, it's on page 19.
Yeah, so there's chickens is talked about, but like I said, when I talked to Brian about it, the problem is that it currently only, if it was to be strictly enforced, and it's how our building commissioner had interpreted it, but we haven't been enforcing it and hadn't for prior to that. It only shows up in the agricultural section, which again only relates to agricultural farms or commercial farms, and that does not relate to residents. So if it's just
So-
a resident who doesn't have an agricultural farm,
Right there.
Um,
Right there.
Okay, so what basically what we're saying is our new proposed language is no worse than what we have now. And it doesn't give us any additional enforcement mechanism than what we have now.
so what we currently have now, right, means that when our bylaw is absent on something, it's strictly prohibited. So if the use isn't there, it's strictly prohibited. The
Okay.
use is not in there for a resident to have chickens. So theoretically, it's strictly prohibited.
So why don't we just leave it out and not introduce it now?
Because there appears to be a great number of community members in town who actually own chickens, and they would like the law not to say that they can't. They would like the law to essentially adjust because times have changed and a lot of people have chickens. So one of the whole purposes of doing the zoning bylaws is to make sure that, we are updating things to be current with the times. And this is one of those cases.
Okay, current with the times is informing the Board of Health that you have chickens.
So part of the problem, in the event that having chickens on any property was going to create a health hazard for a number of different reasons, the Board of Health has the authority to step in at that point and remediate or request remediation of that particular issue. So if you were to look at Princeton's use table, under agriculture, Princeton defers to the Board of Health on everything. No other town near us that I have reviewed restricts agriculture in the way that was proposed. So, and I don't believe that those communities are drowning in complaints related to chickens. So I don't think that allowing it is going to create harm. And instead, what's going to happen is we're going to get people to be more upfront about the fact that they have the chickens in the event that the Board of Health needed to provide notifications related to avian influenza outbreaks or things like that that can affect backyard chicken flocks. We're going to be more likely to have penetration in the community in order to make sure that everybody stays healthy.
Okay.
And that's better than what we have now, where people have their chickens, they don't inform anybody, and everybody moves on.
Right,
And there's no enforcement mechanism.
correct.
Correct.
And the residents who have chickens, this language would be favorable to them.
It would be.
Okay,
Okay.
I-
All right, enough on chickens. As I said, I'm sick of chickens.
okay.
So with that, that's part of the amended definitions and use tables and wherever it falls in the document. So that's going to be passed on for town meeting. So we're going to go back to page 30, Heather, please, the red line, just so everybody sees what it's going to be. So it's going from this livestock, horses and poultry on whatever, 40,000 square feet to you can have them. You can have all that you want. And if you don't have enough, get more.
So I just want to ask, we did also talk about at the public hearing that there would be a requirement to bring even livestock and horses of greater than 5 acres for a permit, and that doesn't seem to have made it into this version as well. Because we talked about, remember, if someone has 10 acres and they're still going to put the barn on the property line and the manure pile on the property line, that we wanted to be able to, and Julie had brought up an excellent example of a situation in town where it was over 5 acres, so it was by right, and they had some concerns there as well as neighborhood issues, but they had no teeth to do anything about it because anything over 5 acres with livestock and horses was not a requirement to come to any board.
Okay, so my quick response to that would be if you're concerned about fecal matter being collected on site, that becomes a Board of Health issue. And that would be the long arm of the law, so to speak, to come and say, you got to move this, or you got to get rid of this, or you've got to truck it out of here, whatever you do when you muck out stalls and store everything on property. So right
So
now,
the
those are the-
situation where there was multiple animals over 5 acres, again, not something that the zoning board of appeals would say, hey, these are our best practices, and hey, this is where your barn could be located, should be located. There's none of that. The town just says you have more than 5 acres, so do what you want.
well, no, because we still have side yard and rear yard setbacks from the planning standpoint on the
Right.
zone. I mean, it's in all those lot dimensions. If you're
to
going to
build
build an accessory shed, you have to still comply with those.
Correct, right, and to build, as Neil just said, to build a shed, you still have to pull a permit for that, so there's still plenty
Checks
of
and balances.
process around that.
And then if somebody were to complain about odors or storage or flies or whatever is related to keeping of livestock, my feeling is I couldn't wait to turn it over to the Board of Health. So there you go. Just take it and run with it and let us know what you came up with.
That's what a lot of towns do.
All right, we're getting really trapped in this minutia. I mean, there are so many larger things to resolve this evening. So I would like to move on with that if you
I
fellow
agree.
board members are okay with this.
Yep.
Other than I want to insert roosters on this 13 in red. It's got to say no roosters.
Yeah, you could make it say raising and keeping of poultry other than roosters.
There you go.
accessory to a
All right,
residence.
but I'll work that out with Heather and town council. Okay, now let's go to the maps. So we got into a lot of discussion at the hearing about, we were asked several questions about some properties, why they were included, why others weren't, and whatever. There were some down just past Grove Street on the left and on the right. Those are part of Worcester water, the reservoir section, so they're excluded. They're not owned by the town. But then there were some on Crowning Shield that went in off of 122 that didn't actually abut Route 122. So we've made some adjustments. Oh, there you go. Thank you. So we've tried to clean up the questions that came up during the hearing, and I think we have addressed most of them. Are you in?
Oh, I hope so.
I was gonna say, Heather, are you in agreement with that statement, that most of them are cleaned up? Most?
I believe so. I think there's still one or two, but so if everyone can everyone see this on their screen?
Yep.
Okay, so if you just grab my little tool here, hold on 1 second. Okay. That's probably, let me see if I, hang on 1 second. That's fine. Make it blue or green. There we go. Okay. So right over here in this section, I don't know if people can see that. There were originally a couple other things that I think were in business, so we had that taken care of.
Right.
The big one that,
Heather,
the big
hang
one
on.
that,
Just hang on.
Yep.
So one of the questions, the library is right there on the corner of 31 and 122. So that's basically, I can't read the numbers on.
can you read it now, Neil?
Did we lose Neil?
You know, that would explain why he went silent.
Yeah, I'll send him a text, make sure he knows.
Hold on, see where he is. Yeah, he disappeared. Oh, he wants to come back in. Hold on. Let me find him. Oh no, where's my thing? Ah. Hang on 1 second. Okay, there he is. I couldn't see the waiting room. Neil, are you back?
There we go. Can you hear me now? I'm sorry. Yes?
Yes, I made it bigger and you disappeared.
I'm so, well, I hit a key on my computer and it disconnected. So, all right. So the lot number 18121 and 18122, I believe, are the Richards Memorial Library parcels. So those were first in there as business, but there's already a business on them. So we didn't have to worry about that. All right. Now can you go further down toward Crowning Shield, please? Good job. Can you make it full screen or you can't? Okay.
Give me a second, Neil. I'm playing with it here.
All right.
Okay, there you
My
go.
20 minutes just went out the window, you guys, because we spent 18 minutes on chickens.
Okay, so Crowning Shield, this was picked up great at the public hearing. So a lot of these additional parcels, 19-3G, 3F, 3E, 15C, and I think even 1911, for
Yep.
one reason or another had got grouped into the business district, and that wasn't our intent. So this is, that has
Correct.
now been fixed.
Okay. Continue down a little bit further and you'll come to the watershed district. Just keep going down.
Yeah,
Okay, the first one there, keep coming down. All right, so will you see 260, what is that, 261-2?
yeah, something like that.
All right, that little pin, that's that little blue house on the corner as you turn onto 56. So that's a private residence, but the rest of that is all in the watershed district. So it's never going to be built on no matter what Walmart or Jeff Bezos want to do with Amazon. So we don't have to worry about that. Continue down, please. Okay. All right, so good. What's the next one down? Continue a little bit more to where 27-140, right there. 27-141A. I'm not sure what that is, but we've already researched it and it cannot be built on. It's either all wetlands or something to that effect, so it's not included, even though it has frontage on 122. Let's continue down on our merry way to Worcester.
Hang on one second, Neil. Let me just grab. I do have all the maps with my original notes on that because I sat down with Kateri on that piece. So what was that? That was 2741A.
27141A, correct.
Okay. One second. That's the city of Worcester water.
Okay, there you go. I knew it was water something. Never to be built on. Okay, let's on our journey. Get in your car and keep going to Worcester. Okay. So now you have 2858A. Which is, I think that's Muir Meadows. That's part of the Worcester Land Trust.
Okay. I was
Yes.
just trying to find, yes.
Okay, Muir Meadows. Okay, let's chug along here. Okay, what now? If you what is 29/1 right on the corner of
Yep.
Camp Street, but that has
So-
no frontage. See that
Correct.
that little triangular piece takes 29-1 and 29-1A out of play because they do not have frontage on 122. So thus they're out. Next, let's
Yes.
continue down.
And just to note, because this keeps coming up, this property, we're working on the final map because the line should be more like this.
Okay. But regardless, it does not fall into this proposed business zone because it has no frontage on 122.
Okay.
All right.
What's the little triangle, Neil?
It's if you drive up from Worcester, I don't know how to describe it to you, but it's where the radar trap cops always stop and park their vehicles to make sure no one's speeding coming out of Worcester. But
Who,
that,
who owns the property?
I believe it might be state or town.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't even have a parcel number,
Right, it doesn't. So it may be part of the
the road.
yeah. But
That's
no,
a
we
per-
don't want to say
that's
it that way because if it's part of the road, then those other lots have frontage on the road, so that doesn't comply. It's not that. It is a separate parcel.
That's a perfect description. That's where the police.
They do. They sit right there every day. Yep.
Yep.
All right.
And
let's-
also, the plows stay there when
Yes,
it's,
when they're staging, correct. Yes.
Yeah.
All right, let's continue to the Worcester line. I think we've got it all cleaned up, Heather.
I think so. Robert, did you see anything that we missed?
She may have
No, I
left.
think the
Uh-oh.
ones that you solved
Okay.
on Crowning Shield were the biggest sort of infractions.
Right.
No.
Okay,
I just want to ask though, Neil had said we're not including the library because it's already business. I mean, that's not the best reason to not include the library.
no,
Probably
but
other reasons, but
it's beyond, if you want to go back up, Heather, it's beyond what our proposal was. See, because the church is what's that? 16-185A. That is the church. Oh, I'm sorry, that's the cemetery. The church is right under the 122 number there. So those have frontage on Route 122. The library does not. And the other properties were the 18, or no, I'm sorry, 18-36, 35, 34A, and 34. One of them is the church, the Catholic Church, St. Columba. And the parking lot is for the Congregational Church is 18-36.
No trash.
See right there.
so what if the library needed to do something, that would be the town, to help it, you know, add a business there for some reason, somehow? Or if the library moved and the town wanted to sell that parcel, do we want that to be residential? Is it better because it's in a business cluster that it's allowed to be another business that's already sort of an established footprint with traffic pattern and parking?
And parking and this and that. Do you want to add it? We'll add it.
I think it should be a discussion. It's your committee though, Neil. So you ask your committee if they feel like they should add it.
All right. Gentlemen on the board, what are your feelings? I need input.
I'm fine. I'm fine with adding it.
Adding it. Okay, putting it
I
back.
would
in.
agree with that too. I think that makes sense.
Okay. All right, so Heather will ask that CMRPC put that back in.
They'll love my email.
I know they will. Okay. So Heather, I've taken care, I've got the maps done, which was 3C. We've got the zoning district map done, Article 10. Reaffirm our recommendations. So the next thing is to take a motion to accept the zoning maps as just discussed and amended. Are you in agreement, Heather?
Yes.
Okay, so gentlemen, I would need a motion. Somebody state their name and they're making a motion to accept or move to town meeting the proposed changes, the amendments to the zoning map as of this evening.
David Bloom, I'll make the amendment. I'll make the motion to accept the amendment as
Do we have a-
proposed here and to move it to the town meeting.
All right, do we have a second?
Peter Shore, second.
Okay. Any further discussion from the board? All those in favor, roll call. Peter,
Yes.
Jason,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
okay. David
Yes,
and Neil, yes. Okay, we're good. 5-0. All right. According to what I've got here, Heather, I believe that is all we had to do to prepare for Monday's meeting. Is that correct?
So I would say, I think you're good. You do have a, I don't know if you have a raised hand from Jen DeCenzo. I don't know
Yeah,
if
I'm
you
gonna
wanna
get to that in a
recognize her.
minute, but I just wanted to, that will get into the
Yes.
public session. So we're good with the new business.
Yes, sir.
All right, we'll open the public session for the shortest period of time in history. Jen, what is your question?
Hi, 42 West Street, Jen DeCenzo. One question. Are you going to have this interactive map that we can actually see at the town meeting because the copies are extremely hard to read?
Yes,
Thank you.
not a problem. All right, Alan, I'm gonna ask just because I saw you there. Do you have any questions, sir?
Yeah, but I,
Are they pertinent to
I'm good.
tonight's discussion?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm
Okay,
good.
that's
Thank
what I
you
want to
ver-
hear.
Thank you very much for asking.
Okay, that's
but-
what I want to hear.
Yep.
All
My
right.
questions relate to animals and I don't want to open that again. And I'm not, but so I would suggest with all due respect that if the animal question comes up at the town meeting and people get real excited about it, you ought to have I suggest you have a fallback position like, hey, this committee or this ad hoc committee will study it and come back with a report or something like that. It just would be a shame. So much work has gone into what you all are doing. And to have it, I think somebody tried to say it, to have it all collapse because someone has 8 chickens and they're only, and they were promised they wouldn't have more than 4 and they violated the promise and people are upset. And then the laws that isn't being enforced, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That would be a shame.
All right, we will try to have that geared up for Monday evening for discussion purposes. Anybody else with any type of comment public-wise? Peter? All right, with that, I would take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Make a motion, Peter Shore, to adjourn the meeting.
Do we have a second?
David
Jason,
Bloom.
second.
Oh,
All right.
Jason beat me. Okay.
All in favor by roll call. We'll start with David.
Aye.
Okay, Peter,
Aye.
Rob, Jason.
Aye.
Okay, we're gonna go 4-0 at this point. Motion is carried. The meeting is adjourned. We will see you folks all on Monday evening. I want to thank everybody for giving me I went too long, 44 minutes. I apologize, but what can I say? My fine feathered friends have taken over. So, all right, thank you all.
Have a good
Have a good night, everybody.